The Indianapolis Colts were back in action this weekend for two fully padded practices, and they might just have been Anthony Richardson's best practices yet. As Drake and I watched from the sidelines, what did we see from the rookie quarterback? Which wide receiver caught our eye? And how does the Colts defense look through 2 weeks of camp? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, joined here as always by my fellow writer and colleague at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake and I got to enjoy a nice, beautiful day in Westfield, Indiana yesterday, taking in Colts practice from the sidelines. And a shout out to Colts fan Cole and some of the others that joined us at Grand Junction Brewing Company to hang out with us after practice. It was a really good time. But Drake, just saw you about 24 hours ago. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really good, and Colts camp was awesome. It was really cool to be outside this time and actually see so many fans, because the first time that I saw it, it was kind of in a condensed format, so far fewer cheers and excitement going on. But the weather was nice. Shane Steichen was great on the podium, and it was interesting to talk to Daryl Baker Jr. as well. So just a really good day to watch Colts football. And we're about to dive into, how multiple guys had a really good showing on, during practice number 8.
Yeah, you just see things starting to really come together here as far as like what the Colts want to do on the offensive side of the ball, what they want to do on the defensive side of the ball, and the guys that are really starting to show out. Of course, we got Anthony Richardson, who in our opinions, had his best practices of the weekend, and we'll dive into those. We're going to dive into another wide receiver that we think has had a good showing, but we'll give you all the details from Colts camp. Stats Matt is here. What's up with you, buddy? It stinks that Stats Matt could not make it to the meetup yesterday, but eventually we're going to get Stats Matt to come up here. We've got Wyatt Law in the chat who says he's living the dream. So much to talk about nowadays. You're absolutely right, Wyatt. So hopefully Logan Schmidt is able to join us tonight, because Logan's birthday. Want to give Logan a shout out. Happy birthday to Logan Schmidt. DSG Good Bar is here. We're doing fantastic. And also give a shout out to my brother Adam Moore, who turns 21 today. I don't know if he's going to be watching tonight. He's probably going out with his friends to celebrate that. But happy birthday, brother. And if you haven't done so already, please, just in honor of my brother, in honor of Logan Schmidt, go follow us on all the things, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on Twitter, and subscribe to us here on the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, whenever Shad goes live with the Saddle Up Show, because as you guys have noticed, Colts content is going to continue to flow all season long. And if you can't catch us live, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star review there. So that way it helps us with the algorithm, helps us connect to more Colts fans. And you get to see every episode of the Horseshoe Huddle Halftime, our audio only episodes that come out every Wednesday. Shout out to my wife, Danielle Moore, for her nightly super sticker. Really appreciate that. Noah Compton is here in the chat as well. And so, yeah, exactly. So, and as we dive in tonight, since we have a lot to talk about tonight, if you guys do want your comment highlighted or you have a question, make sure to throw in that super chat and we'll get to it ASAP, because that's what we do here at the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast. And before we get started, Drake and I do have a really special announcement. I kind of teased it on the last episode and wanted to let you guys know. As we know, the Colts have their first preseason game this Saturday against the Buffalo Bills. And if you want to watch that game with Drake and I, you're going to have the opportunity to do so, because our friends over at Bleacher Report have reached out to us again, and Drake and I are going to be calling the games live from the Bleacher Report app, doing a live watch along with you guys directly there, at least while the starters are in. So we'll be giving our analysis throughout the game. Drake and I will be calling the game. So if you want to follow along with us and you want to hear how Drake and I will call these preseason games, to see the first action of Anthony Richardson in a Colts uniform, download the Bleacher Report app. Make sure you're following the Colts content on there, and you're going to see Drake and I's face on Saturday for Colts versus Bills and every preseason game for the Indianapolis Colts this spring. So Drake is super excited about this. Another opportunity to work with the great people over at Bleacher Report, and hopefully we can talk about some good things happening with Anthony Richardson in this team in these preseason games. Very exciting.
Yeah, and usually preseason's kind of a humdrum time for a lot of fans. And the thing is, it's especially different this time. So come watch along with us. It's going to be fun for me and Andrew to experience this too. It's going to be the first time you're going to see the future of the team actually take the field in a live action setting. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We can't thank Bleacher Report enough, and ready to get to it. Definitely, especially that's going to be interesting to see everything kind of start to unfold.
Exactly. Make sure you download the Bleacher Report app, follow the Colts on there, and you'll see us on Saturday and throughout the entire preseason on Bleacher Report. So, Drake, without further ado, let's dive right into it and dive into QB5 quarterback Anthony Richardson, who was a star these past few days at training camp. The title of the episode is Anthony Richardson Shines During Weekend Practices, and honestly, that's exactly what he did. He on Saturday, he was with the second team after practicing with the first team for 2 practices prior. Absolutely lit up the second team. Finished 9 of 11 passing for 2 touchdowns. One was a long catch and run by Amari Rogers. The second was a 15-yard touchdown to Drew Ogletree. And then we saw on Sunday, Richardson back taking all the starting reps. So if you're keeping track at home, that's 3 out of the last 4 practices. Anthony Richardson has been with the ones. Something to monitor, people. He's getting more and more of those practice reps. This is what Drake and I were kind of talking about last episode, where things are pointing to Anthony Richardson starting week 1. And yesterday, again, another great performance, possibly his best practice of the entire training camp so far. He was 6 of 8 passing, 3 touchdowns, a short one to Michael Pittman Jr., a 35-yard post corner to Alec Pierce, and then a 15-yard touchdown to Kylan Granson. He also had a rushing touchdown and a 2-point conversion in Sunday's practice. So Anthony Richardson really put his stamp on this Colts offense all weekend. So Drake, I'm going to turn it over to you. Just kind of give me your analysis of what you saw from Richardson yesterday, what Jake was telling us about his performance on Saturday, and how Anthony Richardson is really coming into his own in this offense.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where he's grasping the offense more and more as each practice passes, and he looks I would say he looks well improved from the first time you saw him.
Mm-hmm.
When he was actually taking those first ever reps, just in camp in general, during the offseason, during rookie minicamp, all that stuff. His decision making, I'll even just go off of what we saw. His decision making, it is improving. He's not just chucking the ball downfield. He made several underneath throws. He made several checkdowns. I mean, he missed a couple of them that should have been completions, but that's expected. And he's looking more and more like he's getting comfortable with Shane Steichen's offense. Steichen is starting to be able to throw him into more situations where he has to showcase what he's learned. I think the most impressive thing, though, that's really starting to show is his mental. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's aspect, the way that he breaks down plays, you can tell he's going through his reads. He's not making a couple, 1-2, throw it downfield type of thing. This guy is making his reads to the point where he doesn't see anything downfield. He'll take off with the football. And he had touchdowns through the air, like we said. He had touchdowns on the ground. He did everything that a modern quarterback is supposed to do. And then you put into factor his size and that he is playing against Shaq Leonard. He is playing against Zaire Franklin. Obviously not during practice when we watched it, but DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, we're talking about, he's playing against some pretty good defensive players, and he's making these plays. And whether it's camp against his teammates or not, it's still professionals that want to look good against him and want to force turnovers for their own right to play. So he's beating them, So everything's looking like it is pointing, especially with the preseason right around the corner, man. It's really looking good for him to start week 1. And I personally think that he has developed faster than I thought he would. I'll tell you that. I feel like he's making more and more veteran moves every practice that you see him out there.
And I think the biggest thing for me and was you said it. He just looks more comfortable out there. Things are coming to him quicker. Now there were times in 7-on-7 yesterday where I thought to myself, okay, he probably needs to speed up his processing a little bit. But when we saw him in 11-on-11, he was getting the ball out quickly. He knew where to go with his reads. He was accurate with the football for the most part, and he was able to really work down the field. He was patient, like you said. He took his checkdowns when he needed to Deion Jackson, to Evan Hall, to Kenyon Drake, whose first couple practices were this weekend with the Colts. It's exciting to see, because you don't see Anthony Richardson out there making the same mistake twice, and that's just so key when you're talking about a rookie quarterback who's out there trying to learn, trying to absorb everything so quickly. And I think the Colts have done a really good job as far as getting him as many reps with the starters as possible, because inevitably those are the guys that he's going to be playing the most with. So he needs to get the timing down with Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Jelani Woods when he's out there, Kylan Granson, Isaiah McKenzie, Josh Downs, all of those guys that are going to be out there and play a prominent role in this Colts offense. That's who Richardson needs to be throwing the ball to. That's who Richardson needs to be out there practicing with. And yes, you also do want to make sure that Gardner Minshew is involved, because I mean, we're not to week 1 yet. Things could happen where Gardner Minshew does end up starting week 1 and starts a few games for the Colts. But obviously the Colts want to speed this process along. They want to get Anthony Richardson into the game and commanding this team as quickly as possible. So yeah, he looked very comfortable out there. And we also saw the athleticism for Anthony Richardson as well. There were quite a few times where if things were open downfield, I mean, and things would open up in the middle, he would take off and run. And this wasn't your simple training camp take off and run because I'm not going to get hit. There were holes, and he was able to make guys miss. And then finally, when someone would two-hand tap him or act like they were going to tackle him, he would stop. But he was still making gains before he would ever been touched, even in live action. And we saw it with a 15-yard touchdown run. We saw it on a sweep to the right where he straight up just outran the defense to the corner and was able to get in for that 2-point conversion in that red zone drill. So I was very impressed with Anthony Richardson. It seems like the offense really is rallying around that guy. Every time he makes a play, you see his teammates cheer, his teammates get excited. And the guy that probably gets the most excited when Anthony Richardson makes a play is Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is right there every step of the way, cheering him on whenever Gardner Minshew makes a play. Anthony Richardson is always right there to give him a pat on the back and give him his kudos. That combination of those two and the chemistry that they have, that both of them just want to see each other succeed, I think that's been very awesome to see, and something that you might not notice unless you are there at practice or on the sidelines like we've been. And it's just a really good environment, really good energy around this Colts offense, which definitely wasn't the case for much of the year last year.
And you got to love that about Minshew. It's not often that you got a guy who's willing to just come in and he understands his role and he's totally invested in it. So that's huge. He understands the offense better than probably anybody, on the team. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, literally on the team, I bet you that understands it better than anyone. But yes, like you said, the fact that Richardson's connecting with the offense, the fact that they're excited around him, you're seeing Pierce and Pittman make plays. And the thing is, he's got a variety of targets. He's not over targeting one guy. He, as you said, with those touchdowns, he was hitting tight ends. He was hitting receivers. He ran it in himself. He hit Evan Hall multiple times. He hit the slot guys multiple times. Him and Josh Downs, you can tell they've got a connection. I mean, he relies on Downs when he's looking for something to bail him out. So that's going to be something to watch too, is that connection. So it has to get you excited if you're a Colts fan to see all of this happening, and you're just hoping that it continues on so that he's out there looking great during preseason so he can start week 1.
And I think it's going to be interesting, and we won't find out until later in the week, until probably we do our episode on Thursday, how the quarterback snaps are going to be divvied up for this first preseason game in Buffalo. You know, Shane Steichen said that we're going to wait throughout the week to kind of figure out what's going on, kind of figure out what they want to do strategy-wise for this first preseason game. Does Anthony Richardson get to start? Does Gardner Minshew get to start? How long is each one of these quarterbacks going to play? And with which personnel are these quarterbacks going to play with? So it's going to be very interesting, and I think we're all looking forward to hearing what Steichen has to say later in the week once we get closer to the game. But just to see the chemistry that is being built with this group, with Anthony Richardson and Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, with all the starting guys, how he's able to grasp the offense. Things are trending up for Anthony Richardson and at a rapid pace. So that's really, really, really good to see. And one of those guys that he has shown a really good connection with is Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce has been making plays every time we've been at camp, and even the days that we haven't been at Camp Drake. Alec Pierce seems to find his way into the end zone. I mean, that play yesterday in full 11 on 11 work was right in front of us, where Alec Pierce was on the outside. He was being covered by Darrell Baker Jr., who's having a hell of a camp. He has been one of the better cornerbacks for the Indianapolis Colts out there. And Alec Pierce shakes him off on a double move, that post corner. And as soon as Alec Pierce cuts out to the right on that post corner, Anthony Richardson is ripping that ball. And it was right on the money to Alec Pierce. Pierce went up, grabbed it, and just walked right in for a touchdown. So it's really good to see the number 2 wide receiver for the Colts this year kind of starting to make that leap here in year 2. He's been making more plays. He's been getting open at a higher rate. And I think it's a very underrated aspect of what this offense could do, because all eyes are on Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor when he's out there. Alec Pierce can be the forgotten guy, and that could be trouble for some defenses.
Yeah, and look, they had a great practice. You know, are there things that, you know, kind of like we talked about with Richardson, that needs to improve? Of course, you know, like footwork, maybe just, you know, simple accuracy. But the fact that that route you're talking about specifically, he timed it perfectly. He threw that ball on the freaking break to the point where it hit Pierce as he was turning for his route, and he had to adjust to it. I mean, it was a perfect connection. And that leads me to my point. They are forming just that. They're forming a great connection. Of course, he is with Downs. Of course, he is with Pittman. That's expected. No one was kind of talking about Alec Pierce. Everyone was like, well, he's blanketing Richardson, you know, during his mini camp and everything. He's always out there with Richardson. It has really paid off to do that. He's showing an upward trajectory too from year 1. So he looks like he is going to do maybe even far better given the circumstances that aren't going to be in front of him with the quarterback. His route running is being slowly improving, and he's also, without question, the best vertical threat on the entire team. So all those things considered, especially as we've talked about, one thing I said he needed to improve more than anything maybe is his route running, and just, you know, the way he breaks off of stuff. That was a perfect break, perfect route, perfect timing, scores a touchdown. So it's got to get you excited for that connection.
And Stats Matt is right there with you, Drake. He said Alec Pierce said his number one thing was expanding the route tree in the offseason. That's about the only thing you could complain about last year for him, was getting more separation. And so far he's shown that in training camp. I mean, we talk about Alec Pierce being a deep threat. Last year it seemed like whenever Alec Pierce was catching the football, it was either on a deep route or it was on a deep in or a deep out. we've seen Alec Pierce all over the place this in training camp, and I think that's by design. Shane Steichen wants to see him be able to get in more of those situations, and I think Alec Pierce going into this offseason, like Stats Matt just said, he knew that his route tree wasn't good enough. He was only used on certain routes, and that makes you greatly limited as a wide receiver. You need to be able to really attack and be a threat no matter where you're lined up, no matter what route you're out there doing. So I think it's good, and it certainly helps that right now Anthony Richardson, while he has looked like he is improving his short to intermediate accuracy, and his mechanics have become more consistent as the practices have gone along. Uh, you still, his best attribute is that the deep ball accuracy, and Alec Pierce's best attribute is still those deep routes and being able to be that deep threat, go up the sky for the football. So when you have that combination, it could be deadly, for at least starting out, as Anthony Richardson gets his feet wet in the NFL. I want to give a shout out to Weeze Bosky here. He's a Titans fan that's tuned in. So
welcome.
To shout out to another AFC South fan tuning in, and I think Colts Titans might have some good matchups this year, so we really appreciate it. And then Stats Matt with the troll here, no Titans fans allowed. Don't listen to Stats Matt. He's a goober sometimes. But Drake, what do you think about that connection here? As we've seen in camp, Anthony Richardson and Alec Pierce really gelling with one another.
Well, and they can help each other, succeed because they both match each other's strengths. Like Alec Pierce, he's a vertical, demon. He's going to absolutely push defensive backs, push safeties when they pass him on. I mean, he's very fast, blinding speed. He's tall, he's lanky, he's perfect for Anthony Richardson, and vice versa. And I've said it that, if Pierce can shore up that route running tree, which he's been showing, and if Richardson can improve his intermediate to short accuracy, which he's been showing, he still puts some in the dirt, but that's going to he's just going to do that, okay? But he's been doing it less and less. Both of those things considered, that could be a hell of a combination, because defenses are probably just going to mostly be looking for that deep ball to not beat them, because they're not trusting that Richardson can throw it accurately short and intermediate. If he starts doing that, that's a whole world of other problems, because then you do have to start creeping up, and it's all about placement when you got a guy who can throw it as deep as Richardson, as accurate as he can, and who can move like him. It's spacing is everything. And if you got a defense completely off of their game plan for their spacing on a field, it could just wreak havoc. A guy like Pierce could tear up a secondary like that.
Right, and again, I think we've already touched on this a couple times this preseason, but the scheme fit with Alec Pierce in Shane Steichen's offense is I don't think Alec Pierce could have asked for a more perfect fit as a head coach, because of what Shane Steichen wants to do. He wants to push the tempo, wants to push the ball down the field with those deep shots. And this was something that even we talked about at the end of the season. We didn't understand. Well, we did understand, because the Colts quarterbacks really couldn't get the ball deep down the field, but we didn't understand why there wasn't more deep shots called for Alec Pierce towards the end of the year, because it seemed like he would come down with almost every single one of them. I mean, he uses that 6'3" frame that he's got that volleyball background, the basketball background. I mean, his brother plays for Princeton's basketball team, who made a run in the NCAA tournament. So you see the athleticism there with Alec Pierce. You pair it with the athleticism of an Anthony Richardson, and both of their strengths just match up. And so I see a lot of people in the comments. I'm going to shout out to Jack Rizzo here, saying Alec Pierce will be a Pro Bowler this year.
That'd be
nice. My words. Pro Bowl is a very high honor, especially since Michael Pittman hasn't even made a Pro Bowler. But hey, Jack, if that happens, we'll certainly give you your props. But I do think Alec Pierce can I don't know about Pro Bowl, but I think Alec Pierce can assert himself as a very capable wide receiver, and possibly encroach on the 1,000-yard mark. I don't know if he'll get there, but it would not surprise me if Alec Pierce has 800-900 yards and a few touchdowns here in year 2.
Yeah, and with his speed and the fact that he's such a vertical threat, he's going to have, I think, probably, I would push at least 5 touchdowns, and a couple of those, maybe more. And you're going to see multiple ones be deep ones where he's going to catch it and potentially outrun somebody, or he's going to sky up on a 40-yard throw and catch it in the end zone. And again, look, everyone's excited. We've talked about Richardson and Pierce. They're both going to struggle at times adjusting. They're both super young. One's even far more young than the other. And they're going to need to continue to get better. But, man, if we're going by camp, which is all we can go by, Andrew, they've both looked like they are just continuously getting better. It's a lethal combination is what it seems like it's going to become. And Richardson, he's just continuously improving and shoring up any mistakes, and he's not doing things twice. So
right, we still have to tamper expectations.
Oh yeah,
100% correct, Drake, because they could look good in the preseason, but it doesn't matter until when the games actually matter. They put the pads on and are going up against another opponent. So it's going to be interesting to see how they can take this success and this chemistry that they're forming here in the preseason and make it go on to the regular season when the games start to actually matter. So there's going to have both guys are going to have really good games. Both guys are going to have not so good games. So but it's really good to see this happening right now. And if it was the other way around where they weren't performing well in training camp, there'd be cause for concern. So but everything we've seen out of both Anthony Richardson and Alec Pierce, I think Colts fans should be pretty excited about what this duo can do, not only in 2023, but for years to come as well. And now we've talked about two of the guys that really took over on the offensive side of the ball, but we've got the defensive side of the ball to talk about as well, plus some other things from Colts camp over this weekend that we want to share with you guys, want to talk about. And it starts with, as I was saying, on the defensive side of the ball, more good news. Shaquille Leonard had his first 2 practices of full contact in 11-on-11 setting, both Saturday and Sunday. He was out there with the first team defense in those fully padded, full contact 11-on-11 sessions. And honestly, maybe he looked pretty good. He was able to move around. He was popping people. He did have a couple issues in coverage, but even the Shaq Leonard of old wasn't always the best coverage linebacker out there. So he did give up a touchdown to Gylan Granson yesterday that we saw, but we saw the energetic maniac out there. He was filling holes in the running game, and it was good to see. It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like he's that far away. He's getting closer. Is the speed back to 100%? I don't think so yet. But as the practices have gone along, I've really tried to make it a point to focus in on Shaquille Leonard. And it does seem like as he's getting more into football shape and just back into the groove of things, he's starting to get faster and faster out there on that field. What do you think, Drake?
I think you're absolutely right, because he's come out running out to practice, smiling, excited, and there's actually, like you said, there's a bunch of moments where he's starting. He just showed he's starting to get back up to, full speed, or at least close to where they want him to be. I mean, of course they want him to be at 100%, but that's TBD. But look, he's on, again, like we've been saying with Anthony Richardson's development and Pierce's second year development, with Shaq Leonard's injury, during, this recuperation period, if you want to call it that, he's gone through so much, and it was such a question mark, but everything is starting to hit the green light, because there was a play where Richardson actually threw the ball. I thought he threw the ball very well over the middle, but Shaq Leonard skied so high. He actually pulled the ball down, thought that he intercepted it, and then he dropped it, and he started pounding the ground, visibly not even upset. He'd seemed pissed off that he didn't catch that ball, which some people would be like, come on, man. But no, that's what you want to see him do. That is exactly what he needs to be back to, that intensity where he's just fired up all the time, because that's the best Shaq Leonard there is.
Right. And that's those glimpses of that playmaking ability. That's what we saw. I mean, Anthony Richardson it was in a 7-on-7 period. It looked like it was going to be an easy throw. And then you just saw that big long arm with that big mitt of Shaq Leonard try to grab that ball. And he was very visibly upset because he thought he should have had that. But that's something that the Colts really didn't have last year, the threat to be able to do that. And just getting Shaq Leonard back on the field creates so much more opportunities, not only for turnovers, but just more energy with this defense. So obviously we'll have to continue to watch his progression and hope there are no setbacks. Yesterday he went down for a little bit because and we thought, all of us in the media saw it and went immediately, oh no. And then there was a big hush in the crowd. Luckily, Shaq Leonard, wasn't a back issue. He just kind of got hit in a bad spot in between his legs there. Took a couple plays off, was right back in there and ready to go. So but all looks to be promising for Shaq Leonard. And obviously there's still about a month until the Colts actually take the field in a meaningful game. And then hopefully the Maniac can be back to 100% by the time the Colts take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 1. But another thing that's really stood out throughout these camp practices, Drake, is the offensive line. It's number one, it's been the same group. It's been from left tackle to right tackle. It's been Bernhard Raimann, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, Braden Smith. Really hasn't been any rotating. Those 5 guys have been out there for every practice, have taken all the first team snaps. But something I've really noticed, they are moving guys in the running game. And it hasn't just been one practice here, one practice there. It seems like every single practice, the offensive line is moving those guys on the defensive line, getting to the second level and springing guys like Deion Jackson and Evan Hall for big gains. It's really encouraging to see when you consider how poor that group played last year and to see not only how they're performing on the practice field, but you see how energized Tony Sparano has his group right now.
Yeah, and they're playing with far more tenacity. Kind of like I have wrote down here, they're working well with Steichen's offense, and you can tell they're bought into it too. Going back to, I believe it was the first time we went to camp when they moved us inside. They interviewed Ryan Kelly, and he basically he said last season the guys didn't talk to each other. Guys didn't communicate in the locker room. There was just silence, which is the worst for a locker room, especially a team that is struggling mightily. So it's almost like a complete 180 at this point. And whether it's Steichen, whether it's Sparano Jr., does not matter. All that matters is that the coaching staff has arguably the most important part of this offense, given what Richardson can do with his legs, and a healthy and happy Jonathan Taylor can do in the backfield. It's really good to see them moving guys, like you said, and the Colts seem to have confidence in Will Fries at right guard. I know that's been like the big thing. What are they going to do at right guard? I thought that they should have signed a free agent, but look, man, Will Fries actually looks like he's improved. He actually seems like he's getting more and more comfortable with the guys around him, and they seem like they're pretty high on him too. And clearly the Colts believe in the guy. And I'll go ahead and come out and say it. I don't think that this is a repeat of the Danny Pinter situation last year. I think that he's actually done better, and I think that they trust him, and they're giving him a shot.
Right. I want to give a quick shout out to some people who joined us late. Tony Robinson, he says, I always knew Shaq was going to be back. Thanks for joining us. Tez is here as well. He's catching up on what he missed. Always love when Tez joins the show. DSG Goodbar saying Sparano's motto for the line is 5 is 1, and they're showing it. You're absolutely right. It seems like the group they're building that continuity with one another. And that's why I think I'm more in favor of having this line continue to take all the snaps rather than try to mix things up, because I mean there really isn't any reason to. If any of the guys in that second unit were truly pushing the guys on that first unit, sure, I could understand maybe switching things out. But I mean, you're obviously not going to have Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, or Braden Smith as the second team. Bernhard Raimann has been very solid at left tackle. You've seen him. You really haven't heard him getting beat at all throughout the entire training camp period the last 2 weeks. And Will Fries has really he's just been solid. He hasn't done anything to make the Colts think, I mean, he should be looking at a demotion. I mean, just a very, very, very. I'm trying to think of the right word here.
Solid.
It's been all very solid, but but Tony Sparano Jr. has really made a difference early with this group. They are drilling attention to detail, drilling on the fundamentals, and if you watch the Colts social media team, they had it mic'd up one day. any little thing that if they're just off by a little bit, Sperano points it out, and so that way they know what to do next time. He harps on it, and that's good. That's what this team needed. That's what Quentin Nelson has been saying for years. That he feels like his technique is slipping, and for whatever reason, Chris Strausser wasn't getting them back to good football, good technical football on the offensive line. Tony Sperano Jr. has done that. Not only that, but he's gotten intensity with this line. So I'm really hopeful that continues, because so far, so good for the Colts offensive line, which was a really big question mark coming into this preseason.
Well, and like you said, it just shows the impact that Tony Sperano's hire has had. It also shows that the veterans in the room kind of understood how terrible they must have felt last season. It really hit them later, and they're reflecting on that. And I think that they don't want that to happen again. I mean, we all talked about how fired up Quentin Nelson was and how disappointed and upset. It really deeply hurt the guy how terrible he played and how bad the team was. So it's good to see everybody on the right track. And kind of like Tony Sperano Jr. said, 5 is 1. That's how the Colts have looked in training camp so far as a whole unit.
Right. And that kind of moves us to our next point is guys that I want to give a shout out to. I want to give a shout out to the rookie cornerbacks as well. I mean, granted, it did not start out well for these guys to start camp, because Juju Brents, his first 2 practices were this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. He finally returned to the practice field. Darius Rush had a shoulder injury that kept him out early, and both guys, neither one of those guys are in the first team right now. They're still working their way up. But Darius Rush started with the 3rd team last week. He's already made himself up to the 2nd team. Juju Brents over the weekend were his first 2 practices, so he was on the 2nd team. But they're making plays. They're really making plays, and we saw one yesterday from Juju Brents, Drake.
Yeah, he had a huge pass breakup. I believe it was Ashton Doolin, if I'm not mistaken. Dove for the ball. He caught the ball and was literally going down with the possession. And as we know, Ashton Doolin, the few catches he's had, they're all acrobatic, ridiculous highlight catches, and he always comes down with it. And as he was coming down, Juju Brents slid underneath him and punched it out as he's coming down. That is a bam play. And I'm telling you, that is just absolutely ridiculous that a rookie is doing that. And I even tweeted it out or X'd it out or whatever the hell it is now. You know what I'm talking about, like with Twitter. But I put out a post where I said, Juju Brents looks freaking massive in pads. This is a dude that is just a perfect on all levels fit for this defense. And you got to love seeing his reactions happen like that on a play that is incredibly hard to break up as a guy is falling down with possession.
Yeah, we talk all off season about these big, long, athletic cornerbacks in Juju Brents, Darius Rush, and Jalen Jones, but you don't realize how big they actually are until you see them up close there on the sidelines. Juju Brents and Darius Rush are massive dudes for the cornerback position, and we saw Jalen Jones making some good plays as well. He's been primarily with that 3rd team defense, but going up against Mike Strawn, who's all up 6'5", over 200 pounds. Jalen Jones knocked out a couple balls that were heading Mike Strawn's way. Mike Strawn did get back at Darius Rush with a back shoulder throw that was great by Gardner Minshew. Strawn went up and grabbed that, but Jalen Jones is a rookie cornerback that's been impressive too in his opportunities. So the rookie cornerbacks, the more snaps they've been getting in training camp, the more you're starting to hear their names and see them make plays, which I think is a very good sign. Stats Matt asks a question here: what have the safeties looked like with the projected starters out? Yeah, Julian Blackman hasn't practiced at all in training camp. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury. So Nick Cross has been the one out there at strong safety. And Drake, I don't know about you, but to me, Nick Cross, he hasn't done anything exceptional. He hasn't really made too many mistakes either. It seems like the mental side of his game really starting to come on. And we saw Shaq Leonard talking with Nick Cross yesterday about different plays. Shaq has really been vocal with Nick Cross, trying to help him come along. I noticed that multiple times, not only yesterday, but just at the times that I've been at camp. So Nick Cross is flying around there making plays. With Rodney Thomas II out yesterday during the team drills, it was Trevor Denbo that was taking the snaps at free safety. But I think Rodney Thomas will be back soon. Or about Nick Cross, it does seem like he has improved the mental aspect of his game, which was what was really lacking last year.
Yeah, and you just kind of saw right away that it was a little too much, and it doesn't seem like practice. It doesn't seem like, in training camp he's trying to do too much. It's almost like he kind of pumped the brakes and he's trying to work his way back up to, feeling confident again and everything like that. I'll tell you right now, this dude is built like a brick house. I mean, he is a very, very volatile hitter, I think. So I would really love to see a guy like Nick Cross on the field more, just a little bit more confident, a little bit more, tuned in with Gus Bradley's scheme, and just not letting those huge plays up, because that's what got him. Is he would just let up these massive throws, or he'd whiff on a tackle, and of course that's the safety. That's the whole name of the position. Not often there's someone behind you, so like he let up some massive plays. That's what really got him, and you haven't seen that in camp. You've seen obviously some mistakes from everybody, of course, but he's making improvements, and I think, kind of like with you, Andrew, I'm right there with you. I think that you have to be pretty content, pretty happy with where he's at right now compared to last season, for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree. Now, do I think he's pushing Julian Blackmon for that starting spot? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I also think he's going to be able to get plenty of reps on this defense. If Blackmon either goes down or if they want to use a 3 safety rotation, I think Nick Cross can have a role in the defense this year. But along with Juju Brents coming back to practice this weekend, so did EJ Speed, who was dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury, and Drake. EJ Speed ended up making the play to end practice yesterday when he picked off Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, and he's been making plays all over the field, and he had that was an awesome interception. I think it was right on the sideline. So a little bit of footwork was also in play. So great play from EJ Speed. But here's the thing: what really stood out was when Zaire Franklin took the podium, and he was talking about EJ Speed. He's like, man, it's just insane. He's constantly making plays. He's constantly in the right spot at the right time. And that interception shows the one thing that we were saying he's got to do, right? He's got to be better in pass coverage. Well, exactly. You know what? He made the ultimate pass coverage play. And this dude is never going to lose that edge of being a run destroyer. I mean, he's one of the best linebackers at stopping the run, period. The numbers show it and everything else. So we've been saying if he can get better at coverage, he's going to be a real problem. If he can keep making plays like that, along with Zaire Franklin, along with an up to speed Shaq Leonard, boy, that's a top 10 linebacker group right there.
And that's why I think the Colts were so confident in their linebacking group, and why they didn't go out there and sign a free agent, because they believed EJ Speed could be that third linebacker. And so far he's been doing very well in camp and proving the Colts right. We'll see if that does continue. So along with Brents and Speed, guard Emil Kior returned to practice. He's been primarily playing with that third unit. But guys that are still out due to injuries, I'll run through the list real quick. Zach Moss, obviously, still has his broken arm. He has been out. Mo Alley Cox with a foot, and Jelani Woods with hamstring injuries, as well as tight end Will Mallory with a hamstring. So three of the Colts tight ends have been out currently, which gives more reps to Kylan Granson, Drew Ogletree. We saw Farrell Brown getting involved a little bit with the passing game. Just creates more opportunities, but I'm sure the Colts, especially with working with Anthony Richardson, they want Mo Alley Cox to be back, and they want Jelani Woods to be back as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I even asked Shane Steichen, and I said, you got a competitive tight end room, what are your thoughts on camp? And he acknowledged, there's been some injuries, but he also used, and he has in previous interviews used Kylan Granson's name is making plays. In this one, though, he said Andrew Ogletree's making plays. Farrell Brown's making plays. That was exactly as you talked about. I think it was Farrell Brown caught a beautiful seam route right over a couple linebackers. I mean, it was gorgeous.
Right.
And so these guys they're fighting for these positions. And boy, what a freaking competitive tight end room, even with Woods out and Mo Alley Cox out, the top two guys, arguably, these guys are still making great plays. It just shows you how deep that position group is, and how big of a toss up it is for the 3 and 4 tight end if they decide to keep as many.
Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, defensive end Samson Ebukam is still out with a hamstring injury. Coach Steichen said that hopefully he can be back here soon. DeForest Buckner was dealing with a foot that got rolled up on in practice on Saturday, so he did not practice Sunday. But Steichen said it's, again, not serious, just being cautious with Buckner. you know what you're getting out of number 99. So
Mhm.
no reason to push things there. Linebacker Liam Anderson has his arm in a sling. Kenny Moore, the second, with an ankle injury. He did not practice on Sunday and then or Saturday, excuse me. And then Julian Blackman still dealing with that hamstring. So obviously you want Kenny Moore and Julian Blackman back as quickly as possible, especially with that young secondary. But it does allow some guys like Nick Cross, like Darius Rush, Juju Brents, Daryl Baker Jr. to get more reps. So Tony Brown as that backup nickel in place of Kenny Moore. So while you want these younger guys to get some reps, the defense is much better when Kenny Moore and Julian Blackman are out there on the field.
Well, and luckily, with the names that you said weren't practicing on Friday, or excuse me, on Sunday, is because of maintenance and like maintenance. I think. I mean, neither Moore nor Buckner were really in anything, any boots or anything. So you can tell that the Colts are just playing it safe. Well, they want their stars out there, but like you said, it does give other guys opportunities, and they've shown it. They've shown they want them.
Exactly. Let's wrap up the episode here with the latest Colts news and rumors. Colts made a couple signings this week, Drake, and the one that is the most prevalent, the highlight of them all. The Colts did in fact sign running back Kenyon Drake. That's who we talked about, who we wanted to sign out of the three running backs that the Colts worked out last week. Drake is now in town, has practiced the past couple days this weekend, and he was taking some snaps early with the second team and even getting in on the first team in some pass reps. And again, just adds more competition, a veteran presence to that running back room out on the field while Jonathan Taylor heals and while Zach Moss heals.
Look, man, I'll just go ahead and say it. I think Kenyon Drake could push Zach Moss for that running back 2 spot. I mean, Kenyon Drake
Possible.
he's a legitimate player. I mean, the guy he can be a receiving back. He's more of a one cut type of guy, but he's got some physicality to his style. But brings veteran presence, and like you said, it just keeps everybody competitive while Jonathan Taylor's dealing with whatever he's dealing with, and while Zach Moss is recuperating that broken arm.
Exactly. And with the injuries to the tight end position, the Colts signed tight end Nick Eubanks and Michael Jacobson to the roster as well. The three other tight ends kind of come back from their injuries. So, but with the signing of Kenyon Drake, the Colts did waive Toriano Clinton. So the running back out of the U at Indy did not last long with the Colts. We kind of figured that he was just a camp body until another running back was signed, and that turned out to be true. So, but then the Colts ended up placing a couple players on injured reserve. Wide receiver Ethan Fournier, who had made some plays in camp, and then unfortunately, offensive tackle Jake Witt, the rookie out of Northern Michigan, was placed on IR due to a hip injury. So the rookie season ends before he's able to play a game. He'll join Daniel Scott on IR as now 2 of the 12 Colts rookies who won't be able to suit up this year.
Yeah, and that's a heartbreaker to hear that because Jake Witt, you were wanting him to develop. That's the big thing is he was going to start his development. He was such an interesting prospect, but he's going to get a year to mentally kind of be a sponge and soak in some things. So you just hope for a speedy recovery for him and for Naya, like you said, he was making some plays. So terrible news, but again, this is a league where it gives other people opportunities, and the Colts, they have to go next man up, and the weeks don't stop, and the season doesn't get any farther away.
Exactly. Wyatt Law asks, does Moss start the season on IR? I wouldn't expect that,
Yeah.
Wyatt. The timeline that we were given for Moss's injury was 4 to 6 weeks, and at the 6-week mark, the very latest, that would be week 2 of the regular season. So no reason to put him on IR. There's even a chance Zach Moss is back for the regular season opener if he heals quickly. So the Colts have no intention of putting Zach Moss on IR. But to wrap things up here, Drake, the Colts cornerback Chris Lamons, who they signed just a couple weeks ago, was suspended for the first 3 games of the 2023 season for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. For those that don't know, Lamons was with Alvin Kamara, the Saints running back, during a dispute in Las Vegas when both of them were charged with battery for beating up someone outside of a hotel, outside of a bar. They ended up pleading guilty to lesser charges, They don't have to serve any jail time, had to pay some fines, but before his role in that, both Kamara and Layman's have been suspended for the first 3 games. They could play in the regular season, but when the regular season starts, each will be on a 3-game suspension.
Well, the Colts knew this. I mean, they couldn't have not at least speculated it, so they understood this fully. But it does seem like, it's been a little bit of more of a dramatic season than you want. And of course, the most ironic part is he's wearing 34, the same number that Isaiah Rodgers is wearing. It's like someone needs to do something about that number. And just like remove it from all Colts jerseys.
It is a little ironic that both are wearing 34.
Gosh,
and if I'm being honest, there's no guarantee Chris Layman's even makes the final roster.
Also fair.
He was the cornerback out there that he was cooked a couple times. Josh Downs has made him look silly, so we'll see if Chris Layman's is even on the roster. But if I had to bet against that, I don't think that suspension will really be playing a role for the Indianapolis Colts once the regular season gets going. But that's our show for this evening, guys. Really appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight. Shout out to my beautiful wife Danielle for the super sticker. Didn't get any other super chats tonight, but hey, you guys are great. We really appreciate you guys joining in. Shout out to DSG Good Bar, Wyatt Law, Mike who just commented from Facebook saying the Indianapolis Colts are the best team ever. So and to spoon feed each other mayonnaise, I don't know about that, buddy. That was one of the weirder comments, but hey, at least thanks for joining.
What are you talking about here, Mike?
But shout out Tony Robertson. I already said DSG Good Bar, Wyatt Law, Weezy Bowski, the Titans fan that joined us tonight, Stats Matt. Let's see here. Unboxing Mania, Upchurch 786, a new one today. David Gomez, Joe Allen. Didn't get to see Logan Schmidt on his birthday. He's probably out enjoying it with his family. Shout out to Jack Rizzo. Everybody that tuned in tonight, we really appreciate all your support. And if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and follow us on all of the things. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow at Colts on FN on Twitter and subscribe to Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube. Hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, whenever Shad is going live with the Saddle Up Show, because we're going to continue to provide you content all season long. And if you can't catch us live, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, go ahead and subscribe on there. Give us a 5-star review. And that way you don't miss a single episode of the Horseshoe Huddle podcast. So as you guys all know, Drake and I do write for horseshoehuddle.com as well. So Drake, what are some things that the people can go check out that you've got up on the site?
So I just broke down that, Shaq Leonard's performance from practice number 8 and how he had multiple practices compiled with starting in the first team defense and how it's looking good. It's looking good for Shaq Leonard right now. So go check that out. And then I'm going to be coming out with 3 Colts offense and defensive players who need to improve for the 2023 season.
Definitely go check those out. Great pieces by Drake. I just released a piece yesterday about Darrell Baker Jr., the surprise of training camp for the Indianapolis Colts, a guy that was on the fringe of even making the 53-man roster and now be making a case as a starter for the Colts at the cornerback position. So make sure you check that out. You can go ahead and follow Drake at DWalster Drake on Twitter. Let me get our Twitter handles up here real quick. Right there. You can follow Drake at DWalster Drake. You can follow myself at Andrew Moore NFL. And we will be back Thursday night to talk about Colts football and get you all set for their matchup with the Buffalo Bills in their first preseason game of the season. So for Drake, I'm Andrew. Enjoy your week, guys.